I don't think the end game of humility is believing that you know nothing so much as knowing when you know nothing. That is a crucial difference. A doctor that is too self-effacing to bandage a wound in battle is a bad doctor. We'll come back to this. Someone called me an elitist in the video where I was trying to explain something that I had done wrong, which is hilarious in hindsight. I wanted to take this video to respond, not because I need to respond to every time someone slaps me across the face with white gloves on the internet, but because I've been getting humility wrong for many years. First, because of the religious box that I grew up in, and then because of the liberal box that I entered after. Philosophers have a word for a specific kind of humility called epistemic humility. Epistemology in philosophy is the study of knowledge. So to have epistemic humility is to recognize the limits of your knowledge. I've always wanted to be a cars guy, but I'm not. I've had to go to the mechanic many times and they've said, like, your flux capacitor needs oil. And I go, okay, how much is that going to cost? Like, I just don't have the epistemic authority to tell them that they are wrong. I am therefore at risk to being manipulated by those people, which is another issue. I think people think that humility looks like this. This graph is a visual of the aphorism, the wisest man is the man who knows that he knows nothing. That is a model of humility, but it is incomplete. It's hard to imagine that you're 9 years old, but it's part of why I keep this bunny on my shelf to remember Mr. Rogers. But imagine that you're 9 years old and you have grown a foot every single year for the past 2 years. You might be justified in believing that you're going to grow to be 35 feet tall by the time you're an adult. You and I know that this is not correct. While there is an exponential period in a lot of growth functions, many, if not most real growth functions eventually level off at a certain point. If this is an exponential growth model of humility, this is the logistic growth model of humility. I'm not really helping the I'm not elitist claim by explaining it this way, but I promise we'll get there eventually. Fourth wall break. I'm overthinking the shit out of this video. I'm going to read you a thing from the response that I wrote to the claim that I was elitist, and we're going to wrap it up because there's an eclipse tomorrow, if you didn't know. Okay. As important as it is for us to have epistemic humility, I also think it is important to claim your own power when you have it. It can be hurtful when you claim authority that you don't deserve, but it can also be harmful to not make affirmative claims when you are epistemically justified in doing so. A doctor too self-effacing to bandage a wound on the battlefield is a failure of a doctor. An intellectual too afraid to make any claims of truth or falsehood out of an abstract sense of pure humility is also a bad intellectual. This is why I'm making this video, because I want to know in what elements of your life are you embracing so much humility that it is to your own detriment or perhaps to the detriment of others. If you've been following my channel for a while, you've probably heard me quote this before, but Dr. King has a quote where he says that we often get the relationship between love and power incorrect. Love without power is reckless and abusive. Power without love is reckless and abusive, but love without power is sentimental and anemic. We could say a similar thing of humility. Just as power without humility is reckless and abusive, humility without power is sentimental and anemic. It is impotent and idealistic. It is self-effacing to the point of being other erasing. So the endgame of humility is not the belief that you know nothing, but it is recognizing when you know nothing, knowing the limits of your knowledge. One last application to the real world, and then we're calling it a night. A few weeks ago, I made a video about liberal call-out culture and liberal purity culture. One of the negative side effects of this is that we have become afraid to act in any domain. In my view, it is extremely good that many liberals and many leftists have learned the value of epistemic humility. I know that I'm a cis-het white male person, and I don't know what the trans experience is like. I don't know what it's like to be a woman. I don't know what it's like to be black. As an able-bodied person, I don't know what it's like to be deaf. There's an infinite number of domains of epistemic humility, but I think it is a critical mistake. And I'm bringing you closer for this. I think it is a critical mistake if we take epistemic humility as the only value that exists. We have to recognize that we don't know some things, but we also have to recognize that we do know some. And when it is required, we must claim the power that we do have the authority to exercise. If we do not, we will build a world that is humility without power, that is sentimental and anemic. And by we will build, I mean we will just continue living in the world that we are in now, where conservatives are getting bills passed that are anti-queer bills, they're book ban bills that are installing judges in positions of power. And we are sitting around trying to be the most humble in each other's presence instead of actually getting things done. The 9-year-old who thinks he's going to be 70 feet tall is thinking nonsense. And the liberals and leftists who think that they are going to become infinitely humble are thinking nonsense. Embrace a logistic model, and the characteristic difference between an lots of E words. The characteristic difference between an exponential model and a logistic model is this: the inflection point. There is a point where it looks like an exponential function, and then it transitions into a function that is reaching a steady state, that is reaching a value in reality, not infinity. That inflection point is what we have to have the collective consciousness to find, because it's the internet and people will misconstrue what I say. This is not a moral blank check to ignore the existence of epistemic humility. It's just a requirement to place epistemic humility in the context of reality. If you are the doctor that will not heal because you are afraid, you are a bad doctor. Find the ways to be the better doctor in your life, whatever that looks like for you.